What's up, everybody? It's Chicago Talk Show host, and I'm here to tell you about my 3 favorite parts from reading the July-August 2024 issue of Culture Wars magazine. The source for this is the actual main feature, which is this bombshell, this massive feature, several pages long, and it's called Star Wars and the Balkans, American Myths and European Mysteries by Dr. E. Michael Jones. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to quote the passage, and I'll kind of give my 2 cents and what I think as well. So without further ado, this is number 1. We're talking about the last of the Mohicans here. We're talking about themes of American identity, and we're talking about that kind of idea. And so EMJ writes, at this point, a darker element enters the mythography. Natty, the American version of the noble savage, used his gun to kill other men. When the frontier closed in 1890, the American empire became a metaphysical, if not religious, construct that lost its innocence when the preachers started using their guns to kill those who failed to accept the empire's metaphysical imperatives. After the publication of the Leatherstocking Tales, American identity involved the ability to fire a rifle. Cooper portrays this in The Last of the Mohicans, in the debate between Natty and David, the hapless choir director who wanders around in the wilderness armed with nothing but a pitch pipe. Natty quickly cuts to the heart of the matter when he asks David, "Can you use the smoothbore or handle the rifle?" "Praise be to God," David, the hapless psalmist, replies, "I have never had the occasion to meddle with murderous implements. I practice no such enjoyment. I follow no other than my own high vocation, which is instruction in sacred music." End quote. Natty, who is also known as Hawkeye, is dismissive. "'Tis a strange calling," muttered Hawkeye, with an inward laugh, "to go through life like a catbird, mocking all the ups and downs that may happen to come out of other men's throats. Well, friend, I suppose it is your gift, and mustn't be denied any more than if 'twas shooting or some other better inclination." EMJ continues, and yet Nat gets carried away with David's music in spite of himself. After hearing David's music fill the, quote, confined cavern, and, quote, with the, quote, thrilling notes of the flexible voices, and, quote, Natty, who had placed his chin on his hand with an expression of cold indifference, gradually suffered his rigid features to relax, until as verse succeeded verse he felt his iron nature subdued, while his recollection was carried back to boyhood when his ears had been accustomed to listen to similar sounds of praise in the settlements of the colony. His roving eyes began to moisten, and before the hymn was ended, scalding tears rolled out of fountains that had long seemed dry, and followed each other down those cheeks that had oftener felt the storms of heaven than any testimonials of weakness. EMJ continues, Natty doesn't read books because he, quote, imbibed his faith from the lights of nature, eschewing all subtleties of doctrine. End quote. Natty refers to David's pitch pipe as, quote, the tooting weapon of the singer, end quote. Nonetheless, he is forced to admit that there is some power in David's song. Hawkeye listened while he coolly adjusted his flint and reloaded his rifle, but the sounds wanting the extraneous assistance of scene and sympathy failed to awaken his slumbering emotions. Never minstrel, or by whatever more suitable name David should be known, drew upon his talents in the presence of a more insensible auditors, though, considering the singleness and sincerity of his motive, it is probable that by no bard of profane song ever uttered notes that ascended so near to that throne where all homage and praise is due. The scout shook his head and muttered some unintelligible words, among which, quote, throat, end quote, and Iroquois, end quote, were alone audible. He walked away to collect and to examine into the state of the captured arsenal of the Hurons. EMJ writes, then reality interrupts Natty's nostalgic reverie. The, quote, tooting weapon of the singer, unquote, must be put aside because of more pressing issues. Yes, said Hawkeye, dropping his rifle and leaning on it with an air of visible contempt. Quote, he will do their singing. Can he slay a buck for their dinner, journey by the moss on the beaches, or cut the throat of a Huron? If not, the first catbird he meets is the cleverest of the two. Well, boy, any signs of such a foundation? Do you think the bullet of that varlet's rifle would have turned aside, though his sacred majesty the king had stood in its path? Returned the stubborn scout. Natty concluded by saying, quote, we come to fight, not to musicate. Until the general whoop is given, nothing speaks but the rifle, unquote. EMJ continues, and this is the last PowerPoint of this whole thing, so bear with me. If you're enjoying this, make sure you like and subscribe for more continued content like this. This will be, moving forward, this will be membership exclusive content where I kind of do this monthly. Going back, here we go. We're going to end this in a crescendo. EMJ's brilliant writing. He continues and he writes, Ernest Hemingway carried this tradition into the 20th century with his Nick Adams stories. Like the members of the John Randolph Society, Ernest Hemingway was obsessed with guns. Eventually, Hemingway shifted from shooting animals to shooting innocent human beings. Like the American Army in World War II, Hemingway was guilty of war crimes. And during the summer and fall of 1944, Hemingway was busy interrogating German prisoners of war in his role as a, quote, self-appointed intelligence officer, end quote. One of those POWs unfortunately assumed that he was protected by the Geneva Convention. When he refused to divulge the German escape route, Hemingway, quote, shot him 3 times in the belly and once more in the head, so that his brains came out through his nose as he fell over, unquote. As I said, Tom Fleming was the Hemingway of the 1990s. So what did you think about that? For me, when I was reading about that, I was kind of blown away by this continued idea of what American identity is, and this idea of, at one point in time during the great exploration of the West, we're talking about this era of Daniel Boone, and this article goes into that, and this is what it had to do with, and it dives deeper into that, and it's really cool. And another reason why I thought it was really cool is because he brings up Hemingway, and you bring up these revelations about Hemingway. Like, I had no idea about this sort of thing. And we've talked about it before, this idea of someone like Hemingway who is like this. He just seemed to go out of his way with brute masculinity and flaunting his weapon, right? His gun, right? That he uses to take lives and to take whatever that may be. But he puts that power into his hand, into his own hands, right? There's something about that, and it's this idea that it's an overcompensation for a lack of morality, right? A distinct lack of a system of ethics, and so you overcompensate it with all these guns and being super masculine, but this kind of warped definition of masculinity. Okay, now this is going to be the second part that stood out to me while reading this article, and so without further ado, here it goes. EMJ writes, as an example of the opposite of what I'm talking about when referring to the situation in Croatia, I was scheduled to give a talk at a Knights of Columbus hall in Dallas. We had signed a written contract for renting the hall, but as soon as my name appeared on the diocesan website, the head of the local council informed us that the hall was no longer available no matter what that contract said. I then called the man in charge, informing him that in addition to signing that contract, I was a fellow knight. Joe Sanchez was unmoved by this information. Hearing from a fellow knight meant nothing to him. When I pressed the issue, all he could say was, quote, I'm not going to debate with you, end quote. So much for belonging to a Catholic fraternal organization. That and $2 might get you a cup of coffee at McDonald's. When the Muslims heard about my plight, however, they offered to host my talk at the Irving Islamic Association. Not only that, a number of them attended the talk and liked it so much that they invited me back for my next talk in the Dallas area. So all I can say to fellow Knight Joe Sanchez is Allahu Akbar. Allah has a plan, and it is not going to be thwarted by losers from the Knights of Columbus. So, what did you think about that? When I read something like that, I was pretty dismayed. You know, I have a buddy who got into Knights of Columbus. I was kind of thinking about it, and I want to say they've come to my church before, and I just there's like a I don't know, there's like a sort of disconnect. There's something about it that I can't fully kind of get into. Maybe it's just because like a lot of the dudes that the representatives are like older, way older dudes that it seems I can really connect with or something like that. So so that's interesting to read, and I'm actually not shocked by reading something like that, given the nature of the whole thing, right? But it's disconcerting and it's disheartening to kind of read, but at the same time, it's not shocking. It's really cool to hear about the Muslims having EMJ's back that like that. That's really cool. I think that thing is great, right? You know, we have our differences, but the idea is to kind of talk about it, right? As soon as I don't think we don't have to get violent, we don't have to get crazy. It is that discussion that I believe in, that open discussion that is not hostile but is open nonetheless. Like, it can be a lot, but these are the things I think about when I thought about that article and that passage in particular. Let me know what you thought. All right, everybody. And for the third bit that stood out to me in this article, let's get into it. EMJ writes, in America, essence met existence, as Frederick Jackson Turner pointed out, and a westward receding line known as the frontier, which became the crucible which defined American identity. Setting out from Boston or Jamestown, the English Protestant picked up a gun which allowed him to shoot deer and defend himself against the Indians, and he became an American along the way. Americans have always been preachers with guns. EMJ writes, the effect of reversing the relationship between existence and essence, which the Europeans had inherited from the Greeks, was so profound that it withstood the traumatic effect of the Reformation and made its way to the New World. Aquinas' revolutionary understanding of the two aspects of being has had both positive and negative consequences, ranging from the positive effect that it had in the development of American architecture under the Green Brothers to the negative effect of the, quote, mystery clause, end quote, in Planned Parenthood versus Casey, when Justice Kennedy opined in words that Milton could have put in the mouth of Satan, quote, at the heart of liberty is the right to define one's own concept of existence, of meaning, of the universe, and of the mystery of human life, end quote. So that's the last passage, and my thoughts on that are immediately of repulsion at that last part. This idea of man, just it's all pride. This idea of man being like, oh yeah, I know enough of what's moral and what's good for me. No, you don't. No, let's stop kidding ourselves, right? And so it's all arrogance to be like, yeah, we don't have to answer to anybody. We could just do whatever we want. It's like, no, you cannot. There are limits, right? And this is the essence of logos, limits, and this is why it's ultimately a good thing, right? And I would say that the opposite of that is satanic, right? Where it's no limit. It's like, do whatever you want, but we all know that's a recipe for disaster. But that would be the satanic inverse of that. These are the kind of things I think about as I connect with EMJ's writing. And what else is really cool is the way he kind of connects it with the these notable events in American history, right? The Planned Parenthood versus Casey. I had no idea that there was this Justice Kennedy, and the kind of words that they use, right? It's stranger than fiction because it comes from these pieces of literature, right? Not necessarily directly, but like just at a distant in a distant connection. It's the spirit, it's the geist that still lives on through these texts that permeates and resounds with so much of modernity. These are the impressions that I get when I read this. All right, everybody. Well, that's going to do it for this video. Thanks a lot for sticking around. I do hope you enjoyed it. If you're not already, into Culture Wars magazine, definitely check it out. It's not expensive or whatever, and you get the paper copy, which is the way to go. And go to culturewars.com, and that's EMJ's website, so you can go to the links there and get yourself a subscription. There's also a digital subscription you can get as well. This is my new mic as well, in an effort to kind of improve my audio quality for you guys, my subscribers and my fellow viewers. If you're new here, welcome. I do a lot of Ian Michael Jones book reviews, a lot of that kind of history, metaphysics, theology, and of course I do some other Chicago IRL stuff too, just kind of like doing some cover songs, some video gaming, stuff like that. So if that's up your alley, stick around and subscribe. There's going to be a lot more of that kind of content, as well as some other things that I'll be cooking as well. But let me know what you think about the video. Make sure you like and subscribe and share the content as well. Let me know what you think about my new investment. I spent a lot of considerable time and energy and money to kind of put this together, and it's still working out. There's a lot to learn, but it's important to me that I deliver a good quality product with the content. And so I want you to enjoy the audio and stuff like that. So I'm going to mess around with the audio settings and kind of learn that. And so I'm continuing to level up my game, and with your support, it means the world to me, and it's great to kind of build and kind of go on this journey together. So thanks again. Make sure you like and subscribe and follow me on X as well. And I'll see you guys on my next video. All right, peace.